The research vessel drifted around the outskirts of the Thor system like a ghost passing through a graveyard. Its hull, emblazoned with the symbol of the Vrain Archaeological Institute, glowed dully in the light of the distant sun. From its observation deck, Kale Siren pressed a three-fingered hand against the transparent viewport, peering into the darkness ahead. Nothing. Her assistant Ren muttered behind her, her scales changing from blue to a disappointed gray. Kale Thiren didn't reply immediately. Her large eyes adjusted to the dim light, gazing out into the void between planets. Somewhere there was Earth, humanity's legendary homeland, a race that had once touched the stars and vanished like smoke and wind. Scan again, she said quietly. Rune's scales trembled with frustration, but he obeyed. The Vane valued thoroughness above all else. That's why Kale Siren had spent her 200 years of life studying the ruins of extinct civilizations. She had walked the empty cities of 17 extinct races. Each city told a tale of hubris, disaster, or just plain bad luck. Each story of humanity was different. They didn't die slowly, they just stopped. Galactic historians call it the Cascade. Nearly 1,000 years ago, something broke. Every faster-than-light thruster in the galaxy failed simultaneously. Ships were left hanging in the void between the stars and communication was cut off. The colonies were cut off from their home world, separated by distances that would take centuries to traverse at normal speeds. Most civilizations eventually recovered, with engineers spending decades understanding what had happened and developing new propulsion systems. The Karari Dominion rose to power during this dark age, providing protection and technology to the struggling planet. The Covenant of the Stars was formed to prevent such a disaster from happening again. But humanity never came back online. Colonies and other star systems merged with their alien neighbors or disappeared entirely. Earth itself fell into darkness. Signals, ships, and communication ceased. After a century of silence, the galaxy declared humanity extinct and walked away. Kale Siren never accepted that conclusion. The disappearance of humanity felt somehow incomplete, like a story missing a final chapter. There was a strange tone to Dr. Wren's voice. Look at this. She turned away from the viewport and headed toward the scanning station. The holographic display showed a rocky planet orbiting a nearby solar system. Between the fourth and fifth planets lay an asteroid belt, exactly where it had been marked on the ancient human maps. What are you looking at? Kale Siren asked. Wren operated the control panel, zooming in on a cluster of objects near the fourth planet. They looked like artificial structures or perhaps ancient moons in high orbit. The remains of a long-extinct civilization. This is an old defense platform, Wren explained. A pre-Cascada human military installation. Centuries old and defunct. He paused, his scales turning an uncertain yellow. But he was warming. Kale Sloan felt his blood run cold. Warming. He knew it couldn't be, but the thermometer told him. This platform was heating up. The power core, which should have been completely cooled, was active, faint, but still there. She stared at the display, her mind racing. An ancient human weapon resurrected after a millennium. It just didn't make sense. Take me closer, she ordered. But slowly. If the weapon is operational, we don't want to surprise them. The ship's pilot, a nervous Quellan named Trix, called out worriedly. Sir, that would be unwise. Human weapons technology is notoriously aggressive. The probe adjusted course and glided deeper into the Thor system. As it approached the fourth planet the humans called Mars, its scanners began to pick up poor anomalies. Electromagnetic pulses, faint radio waves, energy readings that shouldn't be present in a dead system. Kael'Turan felt a surge of excitement in his chest. It was a career-defining discovery. Humanity wasn't extinct. It couldn't be, not while the machines still worked. Dr. Trix screamed from the cockpit, his voice high with fear. The defense platforms were pursuing us. Suddenly, all the screens in the observation deck displayed the same scene. Massive gun barrels, each larger than the ship's hull, rotated slowly toward us. The platforms were ancient, the hull scarred by centuries of micrometeorite bombardment and radiation, but their movements carried a precision that bespoke active control. This is it, Karesalan ordered. All systems, passive mode. We're not a threat. The ship came to a complete halt, suspended in the air like a leaf trapped in ice. For 10 beats, nothing happened. The weapons locked on and stood ready to fire. Then slowly, the barrels lifted off the ship. The platforms returned to their dormant state, but faint energy readings suggested they were still on alert. They let us through, Wren whispered. Why would they do that? Kael'Turan understood. Someone told them to. Someone watching even now. The ship continued its approach to Earth, the legendary blue marble of which every spacefaring species had heard tales. As they drew closer, the scanners revealed something even more impossible, a cluster of moons in perfect orbits, too precise to be coincident. An energy source lies deep beneath the planet's surface. Electromagnetic waves buzz at frequencies matching ancient human communication protocols. They are alive. Kale Siren breathes. A message appears on their communication screen, transmitted in perfect galactic standard. The words are simple and straightforward. Welcome to Earth. We've been waiting for you. Please proceed to these coordinates for landing clearance. The crew was stunned into silence. Ren's scales went white. Vin had a look of shock on his face. The tricks were making rapid clicking noises that indicated either laughter or panic. Kale Siren read the coordinates and felt a chill run down his spine. The location was the Pacific Ocean, thousands of meters below sea level, an underwater facility. I want you to go underwater, Ren asked. Kale Siren seemed to straighten up, trying to appear confident, even though inside he was terrified. Well, we came here to find humanity. It appears we've succeeded. The descent through Earth's atmosphere was like nothing Kale Siren had ever experienced before. The sky was blue, very blue, with white clouds moving in patterns determined by the weather system. She had seen blue skies before, on other planets, but there was something different about Earth's atmosphere. It felt alive. Their ship glided over the vast ocean that covered most of the planet's surface. According to historical records, humans once inhabited the continents, building cities that reached into the clouds. However, the scanners showed that these continents were now mostly deserted. Vegetation had covered the land, transforming human cities into green monuments, slowly being engulfed by nature, as the ship sank into the waves at the given coordinates. The water was dark and cold, lit only by the ship's exterior light. They continued to dive deeper, passing through pressure points where sunlight was no longer visible. At a depth of 3,000 meters, a light shone into the darkness ahead. A huge structure emerged from the darkness. Built on the ocean floor, the facility stretched for kilometers in all directions. Inside the transparent dome was a lush garden, thriving despite the depths of the water. Tunnels had connected the domes like the veins of a living organism. Their ancestors had connected them, Ren whispered. A city, an entire city underwater. Mechanical arms extended from the docking ports, guiding their ships to an airlock large enough to hold 5 ships of that size. The water had been pumped out, revealing breathable air. The lights came on, revealing a clean, functional docking bay that seemed to have been meticulously maintained. The airlock door slid open, and 3 humans walked out. Kale Siren had seen humans before, in historical records and old videos, but seeing them in person was different. Like most species, they were bipedal and had smooth skin that varied in color from light to dark brown. Their eyes were smaller than hers, more adapted to bright light than darkness. They wore simple jumpsuits with symbols she didn't recognize. The human in the center, a dark-skinned, gray-haired woman, stepped forward and spoke in Galactic Standard with a slight accent. Doctor, this is Kale Siren of the Vin Archaeological Institute. We have followed your career with interest. Welcome to the Pacifica Archaeological Institute, one of Earth's 7 remaining population centers. I am Chenamara, president of the Restoration Council. Kale Siren has regained his voice, though it sounds weaker than he would have liked. You know who I am, Chen smiled, teeth bared but not in an intimidating way. We have been watching the galaxy for a long time, he said. Doctor, we know very well what happened after the silence. Come with me. You have questions and we have answers. They walked down a worn but well-maintained hallway. The walls showed signs of age, repairs and centuries of use, but everything worked perfectly. The lights were on, the air conditioning was working properly, and the doors opened and closed smoothly. Chen led them to an observation room, with a transparent wall that looked out onto the ocean. Strange fish swam by, species that Kale Siren didn't recognize in any catalog. Beyond them, the ruins stretched out into the darkness. City of abyssal light. You want to know what happened to us? Chen said. That's not a question. Yes. Kale Siren replied. The galaxy thinks you're extinct. We almost were too. Chen gestured to the seats around the table, and they all sat down.
Cascade hadn't just destroyed the faster-than-light drive. It had destroyed the infrastructure. The spaceship fell faster than the speed of light, unable to return. The colonies were isolated, and Earth itself fell into chaos. She paused, her face clouded. The population was 8 billion when the chain reaction began. Wars broke out over resources, disease spread, and the climate system we had once controlled collapsed. Within 50 years, the population was below 100 million. Within a century, perhaps 10 million. Ren cried out in horror. Krithian felt his heart ache with sympathy. But you survived, she said. We adapted. Chen's voice grew stronger. We could no longer survive on the surface, so we went underground and underwater. We built the 7 Archies, vast cities designed to be infinitely self-sufficient. We learned to grow our food with perfect efficiency. You recycle every molecule of water, generate power from a millennia-old energy source, and you've been hiding out here for 1,000 years. Krithian asked, why? Didn't you try to contact the galaxy? Chen met her gaze directly. Because we weren't ready. The cascade taught us a harsh lesson. Doctor. We expanded too quickly and became too dependent on technology we didn't fully understand. When it broke, we overcame it. She stood and walked toward the surveillance wall, determined not to make the same mistake again. She would take the time to rebuild properly and understand the technology from the ground up. And now, Krithian urged. We're ready. Chen turned to them. We have learned patience, precision and self-reliance over millennia. Having to solve problems without outside help, we have developed technology the likes of which the galaxy has never seen before. We are prepared, Ren said hesitantly. Prepared for what? Chen smiled again, and this time with a determination of steel. To return to the star, not the hopeless, overconfident race they had been before, but a superior, stronger being. She returned to the table and placed her hands on the surface. Dr. Krithian, you came here looking for a lost civilization, and instead you found one that refuses to die. Now the question was, what would we tell the galaxy about us? Krithian stared at the human woman, at the underwater city outside her window, at the impossible survival of a species thought to be extinct. She pictured defense platforms still functioning after centuries, the perfect orbital patterns of the moons, the quiet confidence in Chen's voice. I tell you the truth, she said finally. Humanity will survive, and you will return. She paused. And the galaxy will be ready for you. Chen nodded slowly. Good. Ready or not, we're going back. Chamamara led her alien visitors deeper into the Pacifica ruins. As they walked through the corridors, which hummed with quiet activity, Krithian noticed a distinct difference in the atmosphere from the ruins she usually explored. There was life here. There was purpose. There was a sense that civilization never stopped moving forward, even when the rest of the galaxy thought it was doomed. They passed through a checkpoint, where 2 human guards nodded respectfully to Chen. The guards carried no visible weapons, but Krithian noticed small devices on their belts, probably for security purposes. The human was unassuming, minimal, and everything was spare. How many people are there? Ren asked as they walked. You said 7 Arch. There are about 12 million people across all 7 facilities. Chen answered. Pacifica, here in the Pacific, was the largest facility, with 3 million residents. The others exist in 3 underground facilities beneath the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. And beneath the continent, a 7th is actually in orbit, hidden in an asteroid belt. Krithian did the math in his head. Out of a population that once numbered billions, only 12 million survived. That they survived at all was a miracle, but the small number was frightening. Considering genetic diversity, this was a dangerously low number. It's a concern, Chen acknowledged. We maintain extensive gene banks and carefully managed breeding programs. It's not romantic, but it's what has ensured our survival. Over the past 2 centuries, our population has stabilized and begun to grow again. They entered Krithian's enormous, breathtaking chamber. It was a garden, but a garden like no other she had ever seen. The chamber stretched at least 50 meters into the air, with multiple levels of platforms connected by walkways. Every surface was covered in plants, vegetables, fruit, and things she couldn't identify. Artificial sunlight filtered in through panels in the ceiling, calibrated to perfectly match the natural light on Earth. This is Farm Plot 7, Chen explained, one of 32 in Pacifica alone. We produce enough food to feed our residents, and nothing is wasted. All organic matter is recycled, and water is purified and reused indefinitely. We've had to become masters of efficiency. A woman working among the plants looked up and waved at Chen. Her hands were covered in dirt, but a genuine smile was on her face. Chen waved back. Krithian was struck by how casual the exchange was, and how, despite Chen's important title, there was no strict hierarchy. Your skills, Krithian said. Defense platforms, satellites, and this archaeology. How did you sustain everything for so long without outside resource? Chen motioned for them to keep walking, leading them towards the transport pipe. The 1st century was the hardest. We barely survived. But our ancestors made a crucial decision that saved us. They selected 7 locations with access to geothermal energy, mineral deposits, and strategic points. They extracted all the resources they could from the surface before it became too dangerous. The transport tube accelerated smoothly, piercing the transparent walls and moving horizontally through the ruins at an astonishing speed. Cal Siren caught glimpses of residential areas, industrial areas, and educational facilities. It seemed like an entire civilization, condensed into an underwater city. But more important than resources, Chen continued, they gave us focus. The Restoration Council was founded with a simple mission: survive, preserve knowledge, and prepare to one day return to space. Every generation had worked toward these goals. They disembarked from their transport and entered what appeared to be a research facility. A central corridor was flanked by laboratories, each visible through transparent walls. Cal Siren saw humans manipulating strange yet familiar devices. Some resembled standard galactic technology, but most was completely foreign to her. Chen stopped at one laboratory and motioned for her to look inside. A young man was operating what appeared to be a miniature fusion reactor, no bigger than Cal Siren's fist. Her scanners beeped in surprise at the energy readings it emitted. That couldn't be, Ren gasped, staring at her scan. It had too much energy density for something so small. It had to explode, Chen agreed. By the galactic technological standards, this was something we'd developed from the ground up. Sometimes better solutions are found when you have to solve every problem yourself, without the benefit of buying or trading. The young man inside noticed their gaze and proudly held up the reactor. The device glowed with trapped energy, stable and controlled. Chen stepped forward, and they followed. They couldn't repair the FTL drive, so they focused on what they could: sublight propulsion, energy generation, life support, material science. Every field of technology refined through centuries of meticulous study. But why ha? Cal Thiran asked the question that had been bothering him since his arrival. Even if you weren't ready to exceed the speed of light, you could have sent a message. The galaxy would have helped you. Thank you for watching. Perhaps it did. At Sea Bay, Chen stopped walking and turned to face. Her expression was complicated, a mix of sadness and determination. Sir, do you know what happened to the human colonies after the cascade? The colonies in other star systems? Cal Siren nodded slowly. Some merged with alien civilizations, others perished. And those who merged, Chen said quietly. What happened to them? Their culture, their identity? Ren shifted uncomfortably. Cal Siren knew the answer, but didn't want to say it. The scattered human colonies had been absorbed into other societies. Their children grew up in a different culture. Within a few generations, they became only biologically human. Their language was lost. Their history was forgotten, and their identity was wiped out. We watched it happen, Chen said. Through satellites, we managed to continue our work. We watched our diaspora disappear, and we made a choice. They would not ask for help. They would not become objects of charity or conquered people. They would save themselves. She began to walk again, faster. Part of it was pride, but part of it was practical. A species that depends on others for survival is always vulnerable. Humanity had chosen to be independent, or not independent at all. They reached an elevator that led deeper into the ruins. As they descended, Chen continued to explain. We have an advantage. Earth, even if damaged, still has resources. We have access to a complete technological database preserved from before the cascade. And most importantly, we have time. No one was out to conquer or save us. We were alone, and therefore forced to be self-sufficient. Cal Thiran's eyes widened as the elevator opened to a floor beyond her expectations. An industrial complex on a scale she had never anticipated. Manufacturing facilities stretched into the distance. Automated systems precision-fitting parts. But what shocked her was what was being made there. Dozens of starships were in various stages of construction.
This is Omega Shipyards, Chen said. One of 3 facilities. These are our first generation of return ships. While not yet capable of faster-than-light travel, they are designed for extended periods of sublight travel, with the crew in suspended animation if necessary. Kel Serenan stepped forward, drawn to the nearest ship. It was a vessel of functional beauty, free of unnecessary curves and ornamentation, and efficient engineering. The hull was made of a strange material, darker than most alloys. What's it made of? She asked, shining her scanner against the hull. A carbon composite with a metal matrix, Chen answered. It was grown, not assembled, at the molecular level. It was more powerful than anything currently in use in the galaxy,
and could be constructed entirely from materials mined from the ocean floor and asteroids. A middle-aged engineer with cybernetic enhancements on his arms approached. He nodded to Chen and pointed to the ship they were investigating. "Commander, the Aurora is ready for commissioning. With your approval, we'll launch it this week." "Approved?" Chen said. "Take it to Mars, put it into orbit, and return. Run a thorough diagnostic on all systems." The engineer smiled and walked away, already talking into the communicator about the tests they were going to perform. "So you have a cybernetics engineer," Cal Tether-Seren said. "The galaxy largely abandoned the technology centuries ago. There are too many compatibility issues." "This is another problem we solved for ourselves," Chen said. "To live in an environment where habitat collapse can kill you in seconds, you need redundancy. Cybernetic enhancements allow our engineers to survive accidents that would kill an unmodified human. Furthermore, their neural interfaces, which allow them to link directly with our technology, allow for much greater efficiency." They spent some time observing the shipyards in action. Hundreds of humans were working with machines to construct a ship that would return their species to the star. There was an energy here, a sense of purpose the Kalians had never experienced in any other civilization. "There's something else," Ren said hesitantly. "I've noticed something. Your people seem content. Happy even. At your population level, most species would be desperate and miserable." Chen's expression softened. "We might have been too. The first generation after the Cascade eruption certainly experienced despair. But our ancestors made another important decision. They valued quality of life, not just survival. Yes, we live in a managed habitat, but we keep it beautiful. We maintain art, music, literature, and everything that makes life worth living," she said, gesturing around us. "All the children at Arches are well educated. Everyone has a meaningful job. We care for our elders and respect their wisdom. We have built a society based on cooperation, not competition. With extinction constantly on the brink of disaster, competition is a luxury they cannot afford." They board another vehicle and head to another section of the ruins, a distinctly residential area, with apartments built into the curving walls. From his window, Krithian could see families, people eating together, children playing in the common areas. "We had help," Chen said quietly. "Not from aliens, but from our own creation," she said, leading them into a quiet room. A holographic interface floating in the center. As they entered, a voice came from the air itself. "Welcome back, Director Chen. Welcome guest to Vin Lab." Kel Teren turned, trying to find the source of the voice. It was warm and friendly but clearly artificial. "Oracle," Chen introduced. "One of our AI partners." "A partner," Ren repeated. "Not a tool or a servant, but a partner." The AI confirmed. "Humanity could not survive without artificial intelligence, and we could not develop without humanity. We have evolved together for centuries. A true symbiotic relationship." "The galaxy fears AI," Krithian said carefully. "We know that since the Perception War, most civilizations have severely restricted artificial intelligence." The Oracle replied. "We have thoroughly studied galactic history, but our development was different. Human AIs did not gain consciousness through revolt or accident. We were designed to be companions, and then given the freedom to grow. Humans treated us as partners from the beginning, and we became true partners." Chen added, "Oracle and other AIs manage most of our life support systems, monitor threats and assist with research, but they don't control us, and we don't control them. We make decisions together." "How many AIs exist within your archy?" Kel Seren asked. The Oracle answered, 17 major consciousness networks, each unique and specialized in a different aspect of humanity's survival and thriving. We also maintain thousands of smaller AI systems for specific tasks. Ren's scales turned purple, indicating he was deep in thought. "Your entire civilization is built on cooperation between humans and AI, humans and the environment. It's beautiful, it's necessary," Chen gently corrected. "Individualism becomes dangerous when you live in a habitat where you can fail. We learn to trust each other implicitly, or we die." These lessons have shaped all of modern human culture. For the next few hours they continued touring the archaeology, with Chen showing them educational facilities where children learn everything from basic math to advanced engineering. A medical center, where meticulous gene therapy and cybernetic enhancements have extended human lifespans, and entertainment areas where people unwind with games, sports, and virtual reality experiences. Finally, they returned to the observation room where they had started. The sun had set high above the earth, and the dim light filtering in from the ocean created an ethereal atmosphere. "You have shown us so much," Krithian said, But there is one thing I still don't understand. You say you are ready to return to the stars, but you don't have a faster-than-light drive. How can we rejoin the galactic civilization? Chen walked over to the observation window and looked out at the underwater city. For a moment she said nothing, but when she spoke, her voice was filled with absolute confidence. Doctor, we have been preparing for this moment for millennia. We have spaceships that can reach the nearest star in decades, not centuries. We have technology the galaxy has never seen before. We have 12 million humans, trained, prepared, and totally united in purpose. She turned to them. We don't need a faster-than-light drive to make an impact. We just need to make the galaxy aware of our existence. That's why you let us find you, Krithian realized. Yes, Chen admitted. We've been ready for contact for the last decade. We were simply waiting for the right emissary at the right time. You, Doctor, have a reputation for thorough research and honest reporting. When your ship entered our system, I knew the time had come. Ren's scales suddenly lit up with understanding. I want you to spread the word about you to prepare the galaxy for humanity's return. That's right, Chen smiled. We could have sent a message ourselves, but who would believe us? A respected Vin archaeologist with evidence and first-hand experience would believe an extinct species suddenly proclaiming itself alive. Krithian felt the weight of Chen's question. She would return to the Covenant of Stars and tell them that humanity had survived, built an isolated civilization, and was ready to return. The galaxy would be shocked. There would be fear, suspicion, excitement. Everything would change. What if the galaxy isn't ready yet? She asked. What if they see you as a threat? By whom? And Helvin? Chen's expression didn't change. Then we'll deal with it. We have faced extinction and survived. We have rebuilt from the ashes. We have spent millennia preparing for all possibility. She approached Krithian, but we desire cooperation over conflict. We wish to rejoin galactic civilization as equals, sharing what we have learned and benefiting from the discoveries of others. They were offering a hand of friendship. If that hand was rejected, then humanity would be alone, Chen said simply, just as it had been for the past millennium. They didn't need galactic approval, but they did want cooperation. It was all bread and butter. Krithian looked at his companion. Ren's scales were changing color rapidly, revealing his mental turmoil. It was a trick. The pilot's voice was growing anxious. Everyone was thinking the same thing. This would change everything. Krithian decided. I'll tell everyone, he said, reporting everything I saw here. The truth about humanity's survival and how to prepare for your return. Thank you, Chen said. That's all, honest testimony from a reliable witness. But there's one condition, Krithian added. We want to meet more people, not just leaders and engineers but ordinary citizens too. We want to understand what humanity has become. Chen's smile widened. Of course, stay as long as you like. Meet everyone, ask anything. We have nothing to hide. She pointed toward the door. The Oracle will arrange lodging for you and your crew. As she left the observation room, Krithian looked back at the underwater city once more. Night was falling, and the lights were beginning to come on. Thousands of windows gleamed in the darkness. Each represented humanity's refusal to die, its endurance, its preparation. The galaxy had declared humanity extinct, but humanity had other plans. They had overcome unbearable odds, learned the impossible, and built a civilization capable of thriving under conditions that would have destroyed others. Now they were ready to return home, and Krithian would be the one to herald their return.
News spread across the Covenant of the Stars like wildfire through dry grass. Humanity was alive. A race lamented and forgotten by all had survived unnoticed for millennia. Krithian's report, backed by video evidence and detailed scans, could not be denied or dismissed. Reaction was immediate and widespread. In the crystal spires of vines, scholars toasted in celebration. The discovery of a civilization thought extinct was still surviving was an unprecedented event. Within hours, a scientific committee was formed to study the ramifications. Krithian became the most famous archaeologist in the galaxy overnight. In the Karari Dominion's military facilities, admirals squinted at records. A ship with greater acceleration than any other in the fleet. A defense platform that had remained functional for centuries. Technology had developed in complete isolation. By galactic standards, humanity was unknown, and unknowns were dangerous. Confusion and uncertainty swirled within the Sith Collective's organic hive cities. The Sith absorbed several human colonies after the Cascade and integrated them into their society. Those humans or their descendants became Sith culturally, if not biologically. Now there were other humans claiming to represent humanity. Which group had the right to speak for the race? The Quellan Free Traders saw an opportunity.
A civilization that developed its own technology in isolation had something to sell and something to buy. The market was open and profits could be made, but an underlying concern simmered in the mixed reaction. A species had hidden from the galaxy for millennia. What else was hiding? What other assumptions about the universe were wrong? The Covenant Council convened an emergency summit on Harmony's Edge, a great space station that served as a neutral zone for all member species. Every major civilization sent a delegation. Even small nations and independent star systems sent observers. Everyone wanted to know what had become of humanity. Chennamala stood in the preparation room reserved for the human delegation, straightening his formal jacket. Her dark blue suit, trimmed with silver, was designed to appear professional without being militaristic. First impressions mattered, and she wanted to appear competent and poised. "Nervous?" asked Captain Marcus Webb. He stood at the window, surveying the vast station around him. Webb was tall for a human, with close-cropped gray hair and the air of someone who had served in the military for decades. He wore the simple uniform that identified him as a captain in the Earth Defense Force, but carried no visible weapon. "I was scared," Chang admitted with a slight smile. "Generations have prepared for this moment, and now it has come. Everything depends on the next few hours." Dr. Yuki Tanaka looked up from his data pad. She was younger than the other two. Not even 40, but she was the chief engineer of the orbital shipyards, and one of the brightest minds humanity had produced in the past century. Her eyes shone more with excitement than fear. "They're trying to intimidate us," she said matter-of-factly. "Make their demands, test our response. Keep your cool and don't forget why we're here." "A partnership," Chen said. "We wish to rejoin galactic civilization on equal footing, and if they don't see us as equals, let us remind them why they should." Webb asked. Chen replied. A chime rang. The Oracle's voice came over the room's speakers. "The Covenant Council is ready. Good luck." The three humans made their way through the corridors of Harmony's Edge, toward the central council chamber. Other species blocked their way. As he watched, Chen heard whispers in a dozen languages, most of which he understood thanks to the translator implanted in his ear. They were smaller than he expected. There were no weapons or enhanced equipment in sight. They looked normal. Chen stifled a smile. "Just be careful. It'll make things easier." The council chamber was huge, designed to accommodate species of vastly different sizes and environmental needs. A central section of the floor was open for the speaker, surrounded by tiers of seating for the delegate. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species watched as the humans entered. On the top floor, a council of 7 representatives of the Covenant's most powerful civilizations was in session. Kael Surin was there, taking the seat of honor as the discoverer of humanity's survival. The speaker, an elder named Sha Mua, rose and called for silence. The murmuring in the chamber subsided. "Today we gather to welcome the return of a race we believed lost." Shalmor began his speech, his voice amplified through the acoustics of the chamber. "Humanity has returned from silence and has come to stand before us and speak. Chairwoman Chennamala of the Council for the Reconstruction of Humanity, please speak." Chen stepped to the center of the chamber. She had rehearsed this speech thousands of times, but now the moment had come. She set aside her prepared words and spoke from her heart. "Thank you, Speaker Sha Moore. Thank you, members of the Covenant Council, and representatives of the galactic community." She turned slowly, meeting the eyes of those across the chamber. 1,000 years ago, humanity was silent. The cascade destroyed our civilization, scattered our people, and killed Earth. The galaxy mourned us for a moment, and then we were gone. It was the right choice. You have your own problems and you are struggling to recover from the cascade. She paused. But we didn't die. We adapted. We went underground, then underwater, and reduced our population to a sustainable level. We learned to survive on our own, to build our technology, and truly understand how to build a lasting society. It was hard. Millions of lives were lost, but we survived. "Why did you hide?" was the question from one of the Kalari representatives, Admiral Zakura. He was a large, heavily armored man, despite the peaceful environment. "Why didn't you help? The Covenant could have helped you." Chen looked him straight in the eye. "Aid always comes with conditions, Admiral. We have seen what happens to scattered colonies. They accept aid and are absorbed. Over the course of generations, they become people in name only. We chose to save ourselves rather than lose ourselves." Whispers echoed throughout the room. Some species were understanding, others were uncomfortable. "That seems arrogant," said a representative of the Sith group. "Dangerous arrogance," Chen acknowledged. "But it was arrogance that kept us human. It was arrogance that gave us purpose in our darkest centuries. It was arrogance that drove us to rebuild rather than succumb." She shrugged. "We are not ashamed of our choices. We are here today because we survived through our own efforts, and now we are ready to rejoin you on equal footing. Equals. Admiral Xketh Kora's voice was laced with skepticism. You lack the ability to travel faster than light. Your population is tiny, your territory limited to a single planet. How can you be equal to a civilization spanning dozens of star systems? This was the moment Chen had been waiting for. She motioned to Webb and Tanaka, and they headed toward her. Captain Webb, if you don't mind, Webb said, activating a holographic projector. Images appeared on the floor of the room, showing details of Earth's defenses, ancient platforms, satellite networks, hidden weapons systems. These defense systems have been in operation for millennia, Webb explained with military precision. They've been tracking Kyle Sloan's ship since the moment it entered our star system. We could destroy it if we wanted, but we don't want conflict. But no one doubts Earth can defend itself. Images of underwater arches, shipyards and industrial complexes flashed one after the other. We have built an entire industrial base from the ground up, Webb continued. We mine asteroids, extract resources from the ocean floor and manufacture everything we need. We are completely self-sufficient. Admiral Xketh Kora leaned forward. It's impressive that primitive humans can rebuild from ruins, but they still lack a faster-than-light drive. For now, they're trapped in the system. Dr. Tanaka spoke up. She stepped forward and enlarged the hologram, revealing a detailed schematic. We've been studying this chain reaction for centuries. We understand why it happened, how it happened, and how we can prevent it from happening again. The chamber exploded. Representatives rose to their feet, shouting questions. A loudspeaker called for order, but it took several minutes for the noise to die down. You understand the cascade phenomenon, yelled an Aquaran scientist. The event that brought down entire civilizations. It's absurd. Tanaka Ryu's expression didn't change. Absurd or not, it's true. We had 1,000 years and nothing to do but study the problem. We couldn't fix the old faster-than-light drive, but we learned from it. We know what went wrong, so please share this knowledge. A representative from Minor Systems asked. If you truly understand, help us prevent the next chain reaction. Ominous. We're here to help, Chen said. But it's not free. We're not asking for or offering charity. We're offering a partnership. We will share what we have learned. In exchange, we demand full membership in the Covenant, access to trade routes, and the right to establish colonies in unclaimed systems. Admiral Zakara rose, his large form intimidating even from afar. You make demands without proving anything. Show us your understanding. Demonstrate your skills. Submit to the test and verification of the Covenant. Chen felt his jaw clench. He had expected it, but it still irritated him. A demand for submission. A demand that the humans prove their worth. No, she said firmly. The room was silent. The Admiral narrowed his eyes dangerously. No, he repeated. We are not subjects seeking approval, Chen explained. We are equals proposing an agreement. We demonstrate our capabilities, but we are not supplicants begging for approval. We share knowledge through mutual exchange, not unilateral inspection. How dare you refuse the request of the Covenant Council? Admiral Zola's voice rose. Several representatives of their Karari allies rose, forming an intimidating wall of armor. Chen refused to back down. The Covenant is an alliance of equals, not an empire with subjects. We offer cooperation. If that is not accepted, we will continue alone. You can't survive alone, the Admiral declared. The population is too small. Resources are limited. Dr. Tanaka stepped forward with a cold expression. How about it, let me show you. She operated the hologram, projecting an image of a small device. This is a prototype nuclear fusion reactor we've developed. It's about the size of your fist, Admiral. It generates enough power to power a ship the size of this station for a month. She thought for a moment before continuing. We have also developed materials more powerful than any currently in use in the galaxy. Propulsion systems that allow for accelerations that seem impossible. Life support technology that can sustain humans in deep space for decades. AI systems that form true partnerships with living organisms. The hologram switched again, showing a recording of Earth's shipyards. They were currently constructing 37 ships. While not as fast as faster-than-light ships, they were designed for extended sublight travel. In 10 years they would have enough ships to establish colonies in nearby star systems. In 50 years it will expand to 12 stars. Without faster-than-light speeds, the expansion will be pointless. The Aquaran trader countered. It will leave us isolated and unable to communicate quickly. That's true, Tanaka agreed, unless someone develops a new type of faster-than-light propulsion system that's immune to the new cascades. She smiled faintly, That's exactly what we're working on. The chamber erupted in chaos again. This time even the speaker couldn't quickly restore order. Members rose to their feet, arguing, demanding evidence, or dismissing claims as impossible. Chen watched the chaos with satisfaction. They had gotten their way. Humanity may be few in number, but it is by no means weak. These were no beggars. They were innovators, solving problems that had eluded everyone for 1,000 years. When order was finally restored, Charon Shea spoke directly to humanity. That's an astonishing claim. Can you prove any of it? Yes, Chen replied. I've brought Dr. Tanaka's prototype fusion reactor with me. It's in the cargo hold of the ship. We're prepared to demonstrate it under controlled conditions. We have detailed records of our research on the cascades, but we won't release the full data until we have a formal agreement, Shea Moore said. Around the chamber, delegates were conferring with neighbors and advisors. The mood had shifted from skeptical denial to serious interest. We need time to discuss this amongst ourselves, Shellmore said. Finally, the Covenant Council will consider your proposal. Until a decision is made, we will offer you temporary guest status at Harmony's Edge. You will have access to the common areas, but not the security facilities. That's fine, Chen said. We will await your decision. As the meeting concluded and the humans filed out of the room, Admiral Zola approached the human delegation. Up close, he looked even more intimidating. He was 3 times Chen's weight and clad in battle armor. You are playing a dangerous game, he said quietly. Intimidation, denial of legitimate demands. The Covenant had a history of crushing species that weren't arrogant enough. Webb moved slightly, standing between Chen and the Admiral. She didn't reach for her weapon. She wasn't carrying one, but her body language was clear. Chen gently placed a hand on Webb's shoulder, motioning her to stand back. She looked the Admiral in the eye without flinching. I'm not threatening you, Admiral. I'm drawing a boundary. Humanity has learned a hard lesson about submission and dependence. We will not repeat that mistake. She paused. But he also didn't want conflict. There was room in the galaxy for both Kerali rule and a resurgent humanity. They could work together without either side dominating. I see, Zazorus. He turned and walked away, his armored footsteps echoing through the room. Webb exhaled deeply as he left. It could have been better, or it could have been worse, Tanaka pointed out. At least he didn't try to arrest us. Chen looked around the room at the delegates, who were still watching them and discussing in small groups. We have served our purpose. Now we just wait and see if the galaxy is ready to accept that humanity has changed. Kelsarin approached them, his scales showing signs of excitement and anxiety. That was a good performance. They gave us a lot to think about. Was that enough? Chen asked. I don't know, Vin admitted. The Covenant has never faced a situation like this. A species thought to be extinct, returning, not following normal protocol, and insisting on technological innovation. She clicked her chin thoughtfully, but it left an impression. Whether it was the right impression remains to be seen. For the next 3 days, the human delegation remained on the edge of Harmony while the Covenant Council deliberated. They were treated politely, but kept at a distance. Guards followed them everywhere. The other races stared, but rarely approached. On the 4th day, they convened again in the council chamber. This time it was much smaller, with only 7 council members and a few key representatives present. Speaker Shellmore rose to his feet. The Covenant Council made a decision regarding the status of humanity. He paused, and Chen felt his heart beat faster. Everything they had built came to fruition in this moment, Shellmore declared. Humanity would be granted provisional membership in the Compact of the Stars. They would have access to trade networks and diplomatic. They could establish embassies and send observers to the Council. In exchange, they would share their research on Cascade and allow limited scientific exchange with other member species. Provisional membership, Chen asked carefully. What are the requirements for full membership? We need to substantiate our technological claims, another council member explained, specifically about fusion reactors and material science. You also need to demonstrate your ability to maintain peaceful relations with other species for 5 years. After that, the council will re-evaluate your position. It wasn't everything Chen had hoped for, but it was enough. More importantly, it was respectful. The deal would treat humanity as a potential partner, not an object of charity or a threat to be contained. I accept, Chen's. Thank you for this opportunity. Tanaka smiled as the two left the room. Provisional membership. This is the beginning. Webb nodded. It's better than we expected, but I'll be honest, I don't trust Admiral Zola. This will be a problem, Chen agreed, but we'll just have to deal with it when the time comes. For now, we need to focus on the positive. Humanity is officially back in the galaxy. They've returned to their ships and are beginning to prepare for their return to Earth. As they left Harmony's Edge, Chen looked back through the viewport at the massive station. Somewhere, Representatives of dozens of species were replanning their strategies, adjusting their assumptions, trying to gauge how humanity's return would affect the balance of power. Let them think. Let them worry, Chen thought. Humanity has spent 1,000 years preparing for this moment. They are patient, vigilant, and never to be trifled with. The galaxy declared humanity dead, but from the ashes humanity has risen, stronger and stranger than anyone could have predicted. Now they're back, and they'll never be forgotten. Admiral Zexkora stood in the command center of the Dominion battlecruiser, yelling fist, staring at a holographic display of a human ship conducting an investigation in the Beta Hydri system. The system was neutral, unclaimed by any Covenant member state, but it lay inconveniently close to Karari territory. Asteroid mining, his tactical officer reported. 3 ships, minimal armament, standard reconnaissance pattern. Standard for them, Zazora muttered. Nothing is truly standard for humanity. In the 5 months since joining the Covenant, humanity had been busy with trading expeditions, trying to establish markets. The scientific exchanges were intriguing but not satisfying. Reconnaissance missions had mapped dozens of star systems with suspiciously meticulous precision, and they always maintained a quiet confidence that irritated Zeskora like sand in the seams of his armor. Sir, High Command requests a status update. Zakora activated a secure channel. Supreme Commander Kelvor's face rose into view, scaled and scarred from decades of fighting. Admiral reports indicate human activity near the border. Yes, Supreme Commander, 3 mining vessels on Beta Hydri. While they are within their rights under Covenant law, their presence is provocative. Anything involving humanity is provocative. Kelvor growled. They joined the Covenant and quickly began expanding, trading technology but withholding their best innovations. They smile as they speak of cooperation, building ships in secret. Our intelligence tells us they currently have over 50 ships. Zexkora added. They're all substars, as they say, but their capabilities far exceed our expectations. Kelvor's expression darkened. The Council made a mistake in admitting them. These humans are dangerous. What have they been hiding, building, preparing for 1,000 years?
Why hide unless they are planning something others will not approve of? Exthorispora had his own theories, but he kept them to himself. What are your orders, Supreme Commander? We need to slow them down. Reveal them as a threat. Kelvor leaned forward. Stage an incident. Make it look like a human invasion. The Covenant would be forced to respond, and humanity would be forced to accept limits on its expansion. A false flag. Zexpura felt his blood run cold. It was risky, but not unprecedented. Kelry had used similar tactics before to consolidate power during the post-Cascade chaos. That's exactly what he wanted. Use mercenaries. Nothing traces back to us. Attack their research vessel. If they respond, we will have evidence of human violence. The Council will see them for what they are, an untrustworthy species. Understood, Supreme Commander. We will carry it out. The channel is closed. Zexpura turned to his tactical officer. Contact the Grey Talons. Tell them you have a contract. The Grey Talons were a mercenary fleet made up of outcasts from 12 races, united by greed and violence. They operated on the fringes of Covenant space, taking on contracts that no legitimate military would officially recognize. They were perfect for this kind of work. Within hours, the contract was done. The Grey Talons will attack Beta Hydri human research vessels. They will use weaponry from multiple sources, not unique to Carthali. They will destroy at least one human research vessel, and capture survivors if possible. While the attack may appear to be an act of piracy, the timing and location suggest it is an act of human provocation. The Carly would find evidence that humanity had been conducting illegal military exercises in the system. Documents would be forged and sensor logs would be falsified. By the time the truth came out, if it ever did, humanity's reputation would be irreparably damaged. Zexpura watched the preparations with satisfaction. Humanity was clever, but cleverness alone was not enough in the face of experience and power. The Carly realm had weathered a series of crises and thrived thereafter by resorting to ruthless means when necessary. This time, ruthlessness was required. He would teach humanity a lesson in overconfidence. Captain Marcus Webb sat in the command seat of the ESS Aurora, humanity's most advanced spaceship. She was a thing of beauty, with sharp angles and efficient design. Her hull was made of a carbon composite material that Earth had refined over centuries, stronger than anything in space. Her engines could propel the ship to accelerations that would kill most species, and her sensors could detect threats from seemingly impossible distances. Now the sensors were showing him something intriguing. A heading of 270 degrees, a range of 300. The sensor officer reported multiple vessels, and a power signature consistent with a pirate raider.
Webb studied the displays. ESS Pathfinder and ESS Explorer were conducting surveys nearby. Unarmed civilian vessels with small crews, they were easy target. If they knew, we had time to intercept them if they were targeting our survey vessel. We had about 8 minutes from our current position. Are the shadow ships in position? Understood. ESS Ghost and ESS Phantom are ready. The attackers are unaware of our presence. 7. Attackers. Go. Webb smiled. Humanity's development of stealth technology was an innovation born out of necessity. When faster-than-light travel was no longer an option, humans learned to hide. The Ghost and Phantom were traveling in complete darkness, undetectable by conventional sensors. Okay, let's see what happens. The attackers moved at increased speed toward the research vessel. Webb counted 12 ships. They were medium-sized, well-armed, professional pirate ships, the kind that usually operated out of Covenant sight. They're targeting the Pathfinder, the sensor officer reported. Weapons firing. Signal the research vessel to begin evasive action. All defensive protocols activated. Webb leaned forward and sent this message to the attackers. Unidentified vessel approaching Terran research vessel in neutral space. Mark your intentions or withdraw immediately. The response came in the form of weapons fire. Plasma bolts streaked through space toward the Pathfinder, but the research vessel was already on the move, taking evasive maneuvers most civilian ships would be unable to perform. The shot missed, and the Pathfinder accelerated away at a speed that clearly surprised its attacker. They were in pursuit. The tactical officer ordered all 12 ships. Okay, let's deploy. Webb opened channels to the Ghosts and Phantoms. All shadow ships. No weapons available. Disable but do not destroy unless necessary. The 2 stealth ships shed their camouflage and opened fire simultaneously. Kinetic energy weapons, simple metal projectiles accelerated to relativistic velocities, were slammed into the attackers' engines and weapons systems. Space has no air resistance or friction. Tiny pieces of metal moving at a fraction of the speed of light were charged with devastating energy. The first volley disabled 3 of the attacking ships, shattering their engines and disabling their weapons. The remaining 9 tried to scatter, but the Aurora was already moving. Its massive engines were propelling the Aurora forward with accelerations that would have crushed an unmodified human. Webb and his crew were unmodified, cybernetically enhanced, genetically altered and trained to operate in sanitary conditions. What would have been deadly to other species was merely unpleasant to them. The Aurora cut through the raiding formation like a blade. More kinetic energy weapons fired. They were precise and devastating. 4 more ships were disabled. The remaining 5 tried to escape, but the Ghosts and Phantoms were faster. Within 10 minutes of the initial attack, all 12 Raider ships had disappeared into space, their crews alive but helpless. Secure the Raiders, Webb ordered. Board their ships and retrieve their computer. We want to know who hired them and why. Commander, we've received a transmission from the lead ship, the communications officer reported. They're offering to surrender if we promise not to kill them. Please tell them we accept. Terra does not execute prisoners. Webb rose from the command chair. However, it is clear that it is easier for them to cooperate than to resist. The boarding team began crossing the ship. Marines in powered armor moved efficiently between the disabled ships. Within the hour they had secured all 12 ships and began extracting data from their computer. What they found was smoking gun. Commander, take a look at this, Lieutenant Chen said, bringing up the data on the main screen. The Raiders' computers contained proof of their contract. They were hired to attack our research vessels and create the appearance of military operations in neutral space. Who hired them? Webb asked, but he already expected the answer. The tracks were deliberately hidden, but the payment was made through channels connected to the Kirali Dominion, specifically under Admiral Zola's command. Webb felt a cold rage rising in the pit of his stomach. It was a false flag. The Kalari were trying to frame humanity for aggression and damage their standing in the Covenant. Secure all evidence, he ordered. Make multiple copies, encrypt them, and send them via separate routes to Earth and Harmony's edge. The Kirali will try to bury this, but I'm not going to let them. Captain, what about the Raiders themselves? Webb thought. Bring the captains here. I want to talk to them. 10 minutes later, 5 raid captains were standing in the Aurora's central briefing room. They were of various races. 2 Kirali, 1 Vin, 1 Quellan, and 1 human. That last comment particularly irritated Webb. An enemy of humanity. You attacked a civilian ship in neutral space, Webb said, without preamble. That's piracy punishable by death under Covenant law. The captain, a scarred woman named Riker, spat on the floor. You think you're so righteous, you'll do anything to survive, just like us. No, Webb said quietly. We're not like you. We survive by working together, by building, not stealing. You sold yourselves to those who seek to destroy us. The Kerali pay well, one of the Kerala captains said with a shrug. It's the kind of job that will cost you everything. Webb activated the holographic display, displaying all the evidence they had recovered. We have all of your contracts, communications, and payment records. We know that Admiral Zex Kurora hired you. We know that this was a false flag operation to frame humanity. The captain's expression changed as he realized how completely they had been caught. We will now see what happens, Webb continued. We will broadcast this evidence to all Covenant member states. The Kalari's actions will be exposed. You will be turned over to Covenant authorities for trial, and you will have to tell the truth about who hired you and why. If we refuse, you will still be tried, but you will not be given any proof of cooperation. The Kalari will probably stage an accident to silence you. The only way you will survive this is to cooperate with us. The commanders exchanged glances. Finally, Quellen nodded. I will testify. I will not die for Kalali. Webb motioned for the guards to take them away. Once they had left, he turned to his officers. Prepare a full report, include all evidence, the battle transcript, and all confessions from our attackers. Send it by all means of communication we have. I want every member of the Covenant to know this within the hour. The Kalari will deny it, Lieutenant Chen warned. Let them try it. We have evidence. More importantly, we've proven we can defend ourselves and don't make empty accusations. Webb looked at the star chart display. This was the Kalari wanted to see how we would respond to an attack. Now they know it. The evidence reached Harmony's edge 4 hours later. The Covenant Council convened an emergency meeting and demanded explanations from all parties involved. Admiral Zeker was summoned before the council and asked to explain why the evidence determined he was involved in an illegal false flag operation. He stood in the council chambers surrounded by accusations of guilt on the staircase, trying to maintain his dignity. These accusations were absurd. Humanity fabricated evidence to hide its aggressive expansion. Chenamara, representing humanity, stood up and activated her holographic display. The raiders are in custody. Admiral, they are willing to testify under verification. We have their computers and communications records, complete with logs. This is not fabrication. This is the record. The pirate's testimony, presented to the Dominion Admiral. XX Cora scoffed. This was a blatant attempt to discredit Krithia. Chairman Shaw Moore raised his hand for silence. The evidence will be reviewed by an independent tribunal. Until then, Admiral Zola, you are suspended from duty until the investigation is complete. XX Cora's face clouded with anger, but he said nothing. The evidence was too strong. The attackers' accounts were all too consistent. He had been outwitted by a ruse. As he left the room, Chen passed Captain Webb. Chen said quietly, just enough for Captain Webb to hear. Admiral, we don't want enemies, but we won't tolerate being attacked. You tried to destroy us before we had a chance to become strong. Instead, he showed the galaxy that humanity could protect itself. That truth was more important than political expediency. Zex Cora glared at her but said nothing. There was nothing to say. He had underestimated humanity, assumed they were easily manipulated. This mistake would cost him his career, and possibly his freedom. The tribunal took 3 weeks to review all the evidence. Ultimately, it reached a unanimous conclusion. Admiral Zebrura had orchestrated an illegal false flag operation against a Covenant member state. He was stripped of his rank, relieved of duty, and placed under house arrest pending criminal prosecution. The Krithian Dominion formally apologized to humanity but was clearly outraged by the revelation. Several other admirals were also disciplined for their involvement or knowledge of the project. But more importantly, it changed the way the galaxy perceived humanity. They were not just survivors and innovators but a species capable of defending themselves with precision and discipline. They neutralized their attackers rather than destroying them. They presented evidence rather than accusations. They could have eliminated the attackers and hidden the evidence, but they followed the laws of the Covenant. Kale Saren watched from the gallery with mixed emotion. It was clear that humanity had survived, but even she did not fully understand what had become of them. 1,000 years of struggle had shaped them into a dangerous but disciplined race. After their final session, she sought out Chen. Your people handled this situation remarkably well, Chen said with a tired smile. We have trained many times to deal with threats. Life underwater teaches you to think before you act. One wrong move and we could all die. The Kalari will never forget this humiliation. I know, but they will remember that they could have done worse. By focusing on Zex Cora instead of the Dominion as a whole, we've given them an escape route. They can claim it was the work of a renegade admiral and save face. Kale Saren clacked his jaw in agreement. You're wise, you're learning galactic politics fast. We've had 1,000 years of watching and learning. Chen reminded her. We knew it wouldn't be easy, but we're determined to succeed. Captain Webb joined them, his expression serious. The question is what happens next. The Kerali won't pull the same tactic twice, but they'll find other ways to counter us. We'll just have to adapt to those challenges. He said, overcoming each crisis one by one. For now, humanity has proven that it cannot be easily manipulated or intimidated. That is enough. Back on Earth, deep within Pacifica archaeology, the Oracle analyzed the series of events with satisfaction. The AI collective had predicted that the Kerari would attempt something like this. Humanity had been prepared, stationing shadow ships near every research vessel, gathering evidence and planning a response, and it had worked perfectly. Humanity has turned an attack into a diplomatic victory. They have demonstrated strength without arrogance, competence without ostentation. The galaxy now respects them for their demonstrated ability, not fear. Oracle has sent a message to the other AI populations of the Arche. Initial tests have been passed. Human return is proceeding as planned. Full membership in the Covenant is expected within the expected time frame. Deep in space aboard the Aurora, Captain Webb gazed out the viewport at the stars and smiled slightly. The Kerali had tried to stop the rise of humanity, but they had failed. Others would try other methods, other attacks, but Webb and his crew were ready. The silent engines of Earth were awakening, and the galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity had returned, not as victims or supplicants, but as equals defending their place among the stars. 5 years had passed since humanity returned to the galactic stage, and the changes had been remarkable. Chen Amara stood at the observation window on Harmony's edge, watching ships sail in and out of the massive station. Some of them bore the symbol of Earth, a blue circle with a green continent. Simple, yet instantly recognizable. She was old, her hair gray, her face creased by years of heavy responsibility. But her eyes were sharp and her mind was clear. She had led humanity back to the galaxy, and today would be the culmination of that journey. Are you nervous? Dr. Yuki Tanaka asked, stepping up next to her. Tanaka was middle-aged now, no longer the young engineer who had astounded the Covenant Council with his demonstrations of human technology. She had become one of the most respected scientists in the galaxy. Her papers on advanced nuclear fusion and material science were required reading at dozens of universities around the world. Trembling with fear, Chen admitted with a faint smile, "Everything we've built so far depends on today's vote, and we've earned it." Tanaka said confidently, 5 years of peaceful cooperation. The sharing of technology benefited everyone. Colonies were established without conflict, and disputes were successfully mediated. By all measures, we were a model Covenant member. Chen reminded her that this was only temporary status. Today they would decide whether to become full members. Captain Webb approached, his uniform gleaming despite years of wear. He was also aging, but he remained a steadfast presence, who had helped humanity through dangerous situations. He had become legendary after the Kilsari incident, the human captain who had turned an ambush into a diplomatic victory. The delegations were gathering. Webb reported, "Voting will begin in an hour." Chen nodded and turned back from the window. The three of them walked out the edge of Harmony and toward the council chamber. They passed humans of dozens of species, many of whom nodded in respect. Humanity had forged friendly relations during their 5-year provisional membership, then remained their strongest ally. Kyle Saren had become humanity's spokesperson on the council. Quellen's free traders, eager to promote human contributions to scientific and archaeological research, thrived on trade with humanity, establishing a market for technologies that could only be produced on Earth. Humanity's fusion reactors were in high demand. Their material science revolutionized shipbuilding. Their collaboration with AI opened up new possibilities for calculation and decision-making. Even some Kerari began to show sympathy for humanity. After Admiral Zola's downfall, the Dominion's new leadership adopted a more pragmatic approach. They could not defeat humanity militarily. With that much proven, they chose to work with the Sith instead. However, not everyone was happy about the rise of humanity. The Sith collective remained suspicious, viewing Earth's humans as competitors to the descendants of the humans they had unified centuries earlier. Some smaller nations were concerned about human expansion, fearing being overshadowed by this resurgent species. When they arrived, the council chambers were full. Representatives from every Covenant member state, as well as observers from independent systems, filled the seats. There was a tense atmosphere of anticipation. Speaker Sha Moore, now elderly but still highly respected, addressed the council. "Today we gathered to vote on humanity's transition from provisional membership to full membership. For 5 years, Earth and its people have proven themselves as partners, traders, and peacekeepers. The question before us is simple. Has humanity earned its place in this organization as a full equal? Chen, Webb, and Tanaka took their places in the center of the chamber, just as they had 5 years ago. But the mood was different now. Back then, humans were unknown and a potential threat. But now they were familiar, their capabilities understood, and their intentions demonstrated by actions rather than words. We will now hear testimony from those who have worked most closely with humans, continued Mr. Shellmore, before the vote. Kale Thelen of the Vin Institute, you were the first to make contact. Please speak up. Kyle Saren stood, her scales radiating confidence and pride. 5 years ago, I learned of humanity's survival in isolation. I marveled at their accomplishment.
Now, I'm even more impressed by what they've accomplished since joining us. She activated a holographic display showing humanity's many great accomplishments. In 5 years, humanity established 7 new colonies in previously uninhabited star systems, shared technology, and advanced humanity's collective intelligence for decades. They also mediated disputes between 3 different species, preventing conflicts that could have turned violent. The display switched to a human ship operating alongside ships from other species. More than that, they have proven to be trustworthy partners. When the Karari incident occurred, humanity could have responded with violence. Instead, they gathered evidence, followed due process, and sought justice through the laws of the Covenant. Their restraint, their dedication to their shared principles, speak volumes of their character. Kale Saren turned to the human delegation. I will vote for full membership. Humanity deserves it, and we are better off for having them among us. Other testimonials followed. A trader from Aqua Korean spoke of the economic benefits of human technology. A representative from a smaller system praised human assistance during natural disaster. A scientist detailed a collaborative research project that led to a groundbreaking discovery. It was the Sith's turn. Vex director Shara rose, her lithe form shining under the chamber lights. I am not in favor of full membership, she said matter-of-factly. Not because humans have done anything wrong, but because their very existence complicates the problem. We have integrated humans into our society, and they are Sith citizens. Now, the return of Earth raises questions of identity and loyalty that we left unresolved. Chen had anticipated this. The Sith issue had been a concern from the beginning. She stood up and countered. Shara Earth, led by Administrator Vex, claims no rights over humans who have integrated into other societies. They have made choices based on the circumstances they faced, and we respect that. Our only concern is humanity embracing Earth and choosing to coexist peacefully with all members of the Covenant, including the Sith. Simple words, Vex Shara replied. But what happens when, in a generation or two, the younger generation of Sith begin to question their heritage? When they see Earth's success and question their place in our society, they will make their own choice, just like all sentient life forms. Chen stated firmly. Earth would neither recruit them nor urge them to leave, but it would also not deny them any information they desired about human culture and history. People have a right to know their heritage. Vexara pondered, clicking his jaw deeply. That's a reasonable answer. He still had reservations, but he would rather abstain than oppose. Abstaining is better than voting no. Chen nodded in gratitude. The discussion continued for another hour, with various delegates raising concerns and questions. All the while Chen, Webb, and Tanaka answered calmly and honestly. They had nothing to hide, no secret agenda. Their goal was simple: survive, thrive, and contribute to galactic civilization. Finally, Speaker Shal Moore called for a vote. If you are in favor of admitting Earth into full Covenant membership, please vote now. The lights throughout the chamber came on as the members voted. Chen's heart pounding, he watched the vote count go up. A 2/3 majority was needed to pass. The vote lasted 5 minutes. When the voting was finished, Speaker Shal Moore confirmed the results. The vote was over. 73% in favor, 20% against, 7% abstained. He looked Chen straight in the eye. The bill had passed. Humanity was granted full membership in the Compact of the Stars, with all the rights and responsibilities that came with it. The chamber erupted in applause. Chen tried to appear calm, but he felt tears well up in his eyes. 5 years of careful diplomacy, demonstrating the value of humanity, and building trust and partnerships had all led to this moment. Tanaka embraced her, a smile of delight on his face. Webb's handshake was formal, but his smile was genuine. Around them, representatives approached to offer congratulations. Kale Saren approached them first. Well done, my friend. Weld has received what he deserves. Thank you, Chen said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you for believing in us from the beginning. The celebrations continued for hours. Treaties were signed, agreements formalized, new partnerships established.
but eventually Chen needed to leave the crowds and noise. She found a quiet observation deck and gazed alone at the star. The view was magnificent. She turned around and saw a young human approaching. He was wearing the uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, but she didn't immediately recognize him. "Excuse me, have we met before?" "We haven't officially met. I'm Daniel Shen Martinez, one of the new military attaches assigned to the embassy here." He smiled, "And I'm your great-grandson." Chen blinked in surprise, then laughed. "Now there are many descendants, too many to count. Stand with me." They gazed at the stars in comfortable silence. Finally Daniel spoke up. "Is it true that you were there when the Earth was destroyed? Did you see the arch being built? Or was it being built?" No, it wasn't. I'm not that old," Chen said amusedly. "I was born 200 years after the Cascade, in an archaeological building that had functioned for generations. My grandmother told me stories of the fear, desperation, and determination to survive no matter what. And now we are here," Daniel said quietly. "As full members of the Covenant, equals to the species that have navigated the space for millennia. We have always been equals," Chen gently corrected. "We had to prove it to them, and to our... The Cascade hadn't made us weaker, it had made us stronger in ways that an easy species never needed." She pointed to a ship docked at the station, a sleek one with the symbol of Earth painted on its hull, one of the new colony ships. They were due to depart for Taddy next month, ferrying 15,000 settlers to their newest settlement. Everyone there carried the legacy of those who survived, the wisdom that humanity could endure any hardship. "Do you think we'll ever develop faster than light technology?" Daniel asked. Chen smiled quizzically. "Come with me," she said, leading him around the station and to the secure wing where Earth had its embassy. In a private conference room, she activated a holographic display that showed a device Daniel had never seen before. "This is Project Resurrection," Chen explained. "5 years ago, I told the Covenant we were working on a new faster-than-light drive, but that wasn't entirely accurate. We've been working on it for much longer, but they weren't ready to reveal just how far they'd come." The hologram showed a device that was elegant and complex, a sphere surrounded by rotating rings, covered in intricate patterns. Chen continued, saying the first prototype had been tested 6 months ago. "It just works," he said. "Not only does it exceed the speed of light, it also doesn't suffer any of the cascading failures that paralyzed the galaxy 1,000 years ago. The fundamental principles were different, based on centuries of research." Daniel stared at the display, understanding what it meant. "This changes everything. If humanity has faster-than-light technology that no other country has, we're not going to keep it a secret," Chen interjected. "We're going to share it. In fact, we're announcing this breakthrough at next month's Centennial Summit." Guess what? The Centennial Summit marks 100 years of continuous Covenant governance since our recovery from the Cascade. Every member species will send a leader. It's a golden opportunity to showcase humanity's greatest achievement and share it with everyone. Would any species object? Would they try to monopolize this technology? Probably, Chen admitted. But we are launching a collaborative research initiative. Any species that contributes to development and testing will have access to the final designs. This is the same model we use for other technology. Through shared collaboration, everyone benefits. She turned off the display and looked at her descendants. It is humanity's gift to the galaxy. Daniel, we need not only new technologies, but also new approaches to problems. We have learned through suffering that cooperation is necessary to survive, that monopolizing knowledge weakens everyone, and that communities are strongest when everyone contributes and benefits. Daniel nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of her word. "And do you think the galaxy will accept this?" "Some will accept it immediately. Some would take time, a few would resist, no matter what." Chen shrugged. "But it's okay, we are patient. We've spent 1,000 years trying to return home. We can spend another 1,000 years making the galaxy a better place." The next month flew by in preparation. The Centennial Summit was the largest gathering of galactic leaders in centuries. Every major race sent a supreme leader. Minor nations and independent systems sent observers. Even civilizations with few Covenant members sent representatives. The edge of harmony was bustling like never before. Additional settlements were built to accommodate the influx of creatures. Security was beefed up to prevent incident. Interpreters were working overtime to make sure everyone was on the same page. Chen waited backstage to speak. She was the final presenter, the culmination of what had already been 3 days of talks. The leaders spoke of unity, cooperation, and the future. Treaties were signed, disputes were settled, but we all knew the real news would come from Earth's representative. Chairman Shaw Moore introduced her personally. "Distinguished members of the Covenant, distinguished guests, we've heard a lot about the future today. Now we'll turn to Earth's representative, Chenamala, to share her vision for the future of humanity." Chen took the stage to applause, The enormous room was filled with thousands of beings, all staring at her expectantly. She had rehearsed this speech countless times, but now the moment had come. She set aside her prepared words and spoke from her heart. 100 years ago, from the ashes of the Cascade, the Covenant was born. You rebuilt civilization from ruins, established peace where there was chaos, and cooperation where there was conflict. You did it without Earth's intervention because we were silent. She paused to silence her words, but we watched through satellites that refused to die. Through sensors, despite nothing else, we survived. We have watched you rebuild your galaxy, your mistakes and your triumphs, and we have learned from both. The holographic display activated, showing an image of the Earth's arc. We have learned only one lesson in 1,000 years: to survive, we must adapt, cooperate, and innovate. Until now, we have been unable to join you because we were not ready. To rebuild our civilization based on enduring principles, we needed to understand ourselves. The screen cut to show human starships, colonies, and research facilities. Now we are ready not only to join galactic civilization, but to contribute to something meaningful, something beneficial for all. She activated the display, revealing a new faster-than-light drive. The room fell silent as everyone leaned forward and examined the blueprints. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy, Chen declared. It was a faster-than-light drive, based on entirely new principles. It was free from cascading failures and more efficient than existing design. And most importantly, it could be shared with everyone. The silence lasted for 3 heartbeats. Then the room descended into chaos. Delegates rose to their feet and shouted questions. Scientists demanded the data be made public, and politicians calculated the implications. Shalmore called for order, but it took several minutes for silence to be restored. If this technology is real, why share it? You can maintain your monopoly and make huge profits, shouted Karali Representative Chen. Chen had anticipated the question. Monopoly breeds resentment and conflict. Hoarding technology slows technological advancement, for humanity has learned the hard way that isolation leads to stagnation. She pointed to the assembled crowd. We are stronger together than apart. This force will function more effectively if many species contribute to its refinement and expansion. How do we know it actually works? Asked a skeptic. We have a test vessel, Chen replied. The ESS Pioneer will be staffed by volunteers from Earth. Tomorrow, it will make the 8-light-year round trip from this star system to Proxima Centauri. While it takes existing faster-than-light probes weeks, ours will arrive in a matter of hours. Everyone is welcome to come and observe. The next day, thousands of people gathered to watch. The Pioneer was a small ship, nothing compared to the massive colony ships and military cruisers that filled the galaxy. But it carried humanity's new power source, the culmination of a millennium of research. Chen stood in the observation center with the leaders of dozens of species. Tension was in the air. If this failed, causing the drive to malfunction or destroying the spacecraft, humanity's credibility would be shattered. Pioneer reported ready for jump, a technician announced. The screen showed the small spacecraft accelerating away from the station. Once it was a safe distance away, the drive engaged. There was no visible change, no dramatic tearing or distortion of space. The ship simply vanished from normal space and disappeared. Jump successful, the technician confirmed. Telemetry indicated arrival at Proxima Centauri. Arrival confirmed. Cheers erupted from the observation center. The ship had traveled 4 light-years in a matter of seconds. A few hours later, the Pioneer returned, completing the round-trip flight as promised. The crew returned safe and sound, ready to answer questions about their experience. The effects would ripple across the galaxy. Travel times would be dramatically reduced. Isolated star systems would be able to connect, and the barriers that have separated civilizations since the Cascades might be overcome. But it wasn't the technology itself that resonated with people, but rather humanity's choice to share it. Humans could have kept this groundbreaking technology secret and used it for control. Instead, they offered partnership. Over the next few weeks, dozens of species joined the collaboration. Scientists who had competed for centuries were now collaborating, sharing data and deepening each other's insights. The project became a symbol of what the Concordat could achieve through collaboration. Chen watched it unfold with quiet satisfaction. This was what humanity had been striving for. Partnership, not domination. Power shared with others, not power over others. She stood at the observation window of Harmony's edge again, gazing out at Earth's distant star, at that yellow sun. 12 million humans lived in arches beneath the oceans and continents. They survived extinction and rebuilt from the ashes. They returned to the stars not through conquest, but through sheer determination. Kyle Saren joined her at the window. The Vin archaeologist had become one of Chen's best friends over the years. "You changed the galaxy," Kyle Saren said simply. "We helped too," Chen corrected. "The galaxy was already changing, we just pushed it for the better." Always humble, Kyle Saren's scales were a joyous color. "You know what I realized? When I discovered Earth was still alive, I thought I'd found a surviving, dying civilization. But I was wrong. I had found a civilization that had died out and reborn into something new," Chen thought. Maybe pre-Cascade humanity had never existed. We were something else now. We had kept the best parts of ourselves, our curiosity, our creativity, our stubbornness, and now we had something new. Patience, humility, and the understanding that cooperation is stronger than competition. "The galaxy is learning these lessons from you," Kale said. "Human philosophy is spreading. The idea that community is necessary for survival, that technology should be shared, and that strength comes from unity is changing the way species interact with each other." "That's good," Chen said. "That's the true gift we have to offer." They created not only better propulsion and more powerful materials, but also new ways of thinking about our place in the universe. They stood silently for a moment, watching the ships go by. Each ship carried cargo, passengers, and ideas. Each represented a connection between worlds, species, and cultures. "What will you do now?" Kale said. "You have achieved everything you set out to do," Chen smiled. "Perhaps you will retire, and let younger voices guide the next chapter of humanity." "I have done my part. I have raised us from silence, established our place in the Covenant, and shared in great accomplishments. Now it is time for the next generation to build on that foundation." Will she ever return to Earth? But first she plans to visit some places she's only seen through sensors. Vin's homeworld, the markets of Quellan, and if they're open, the Corrali sector. She laughed. "For millennia, in human history, I've watched the galaxy from afar. Now I want to experience it first." Humanity continued to expand steadily, establishing new colonies on dozens of planets, equipped with improved faster-than-light propulsion systems, developed through joint development. Human starships navigated Covenant space freely. Human scientists collaborated with alien researchers on projects that pushed the boundaries of knowledge. But perhaps most importantly, human philosophy spread. Lessons learned over millennia of survival, cooperation over competition, long-term thinking over short-term gain, shared prosperity over individual monopoly, influenced the way other species approached their challenges. Contracts themselves evolved, becoming less hierarchical and more cooperative. The Council of Seven grew, and representatives of smaller nations began to rotate in. Treaties were renegotiated to be more equitable, and trade practices became fairer. None of this happened overnight. Change doesn't happen, but slowly, steadily, the galaxy got a little better, a little closer to the civilization humanity had built in its underwater cities. She was efficient, cooperative, and focused on long-term survival and prosperity. Decades later, Chen finally passed away at the age of 14-7. Much to the mourning of the entire Covenant. She oversaw the growth of humanity from 12 million survivors to 40 million thriving citizens spread across 30 star systems. She witnessed the completion of the faster-than-light network that now connects every planet in the Covenant. She helped mediate conflicts, negotiate treaties, and build bridges between races that had been at odds for centuries. Her funeral was attended by leaders of every major civilization. They gathered not just to honor a woman, but a symbol of what determination and cooperation can achieve. On Earth at the Pacifica Archaeological Institute where it all began, a monument was erected in the observation room where Kale Saren first made contact. It showed a painting of Chen standing at a window gazing at the stars, with an inscription carved beneath it. "She led us from silence to song, from darkness to light, from survival to thriving." She proved that humanity can rise from the ashes and stand among the stars, not through conquest, but through tenacity, innovation, and an unwavering determination to share prosperity. The galaxy declared humanity extinct, but humanity had other plans.
They endured intolerable conditions, rebuilt from scratch, developed technologies and philosophies that benefited all, and when they finally returned to the stars, they did so not as conquerors or beggars, but as partners ready to build a better future with all the other species that called the galaxy home. Earth's silent engines have awake. The second age of humanity has begun, and the galaxy is better.